coffee's cold. You don't notice. You're staring at a napkin where she wrote her number. In blue pen, corner torn. It's 11:40 on a Tuesday night in a diner that never closes. She just walked out the door. You don't know her last name yet. You don't know it belongs to a family that owns half the buildings on this street. Right now, she's just a girl who laughed at your joke about the pie. You fold the napkin. You put it in your pocket like it's nothing. It is nothing. In 30 years, you will run a company most people have never heard of. You will bury a man you learned to call father. But tonight, you just want her to text back. You're 26. You run the night shift at a print shop off 4th Street. Rent, gas, groceries. That's about the ceiling of what your paycheck covers. Your car has a dent in the door that you never got around to fixing. It still starts most mornings. That's enough for you. She comes in around 11 most nights. Same booth by the window. Always a book you've never heard of. Spine cracked, pages soft from being carried around too long. You bring her coffee before she asks. Second night, she looks up and says, "Thank you," like it actually landed somewhere. Third night, you sit down across from her. Just for a minute, you tell yourself. You stay an hour. Her name's Marisol. She laughs at your joke about the pie being older than the building itself. Not a great joke. She laughs like it's the best one she's heard all week. You start walking her to her car after closing. Nothing happens. You just talk. About nothing. About everything. A few weeks in, she asks you to come to something on a Saturday. "A thing my family does every year," she says, vague on purpose. You don't have to dress up much. You show up in your only good shirt. It's a fundraiser dinner in a hotel ballroom you didn't know existed in this town. There's a step and repeat banner by the entrance. Her last name is on it, in gold letters, 3 times. You stand there holding a drink you don't want, watching people shake her hand like she's a small piece of royalty. They're relieved to finally meet. A man in a good suit asks what you do. You tell him. He nods, already looking past your shoulder for someone more useful to talk to. You feel something small and sharp in your chest. Not hurt exactly. Closer to being erased mid-sentence. You go home that night and look up her name properly for the first time. Not out of suspicion. Just to understand what you walked into. Her father's name comes with a number next to it on a list people publish once a year. 10 figures. You read it twice, like the second time might make it smaller. You think about walking away before it gets serious. A print shop guy doesn't end up standing next to people like that for long. You've seen enough to know how those stories usually end. Then she texts you that night. Something dumb about the pie again. You laugh out loud, alone in your apartment. You text back. You start noticing small things after that. She never brings up what her father does. You never ask first. It sits between the two of you, quiet, like something neither of you wants to be the one to open. You meet her friends a month later. Polite, curious in a careful way. One of them asks where you went to school. You tell the truth. Community college, 2 years, then straight to work. Nobody says anything unkind, but something in the room shifts anyway, small and cool, like a window cracked open somewhere you can't see. There's one night you catch yourself watching her laugh at something a friend of hers says, some inside joke from a world you weren't part of, and you feel a flash of something ugly and small you don't say out loud. Not about her. About yourself, standing at the edge of a conversation you can't follow. You keep showing up regardless. Because the version of her in that diner booth, the one who steals fries off your plate and argues that cherry pie is objectively worse than apple, doesn't care about any banner or any list. You start hoping the rest of it never has to matter. You have no idea yet how wrong that hope is going to turn out to be. 2 years slide by faster than you expect. You're 28 now. Marisol still steals fries off your plate without asking. You still bring her coffee before she says anything, even though the diner job ended a while back. Some habits just don't need a reason to stick around. You want to marry her. You know it the way you know your own address. You don't buy a ring right away. You save for a few months and buy something else instead. Her grandmother's watch, the one that stopped ticking years back, was sitting in a drawer at her mother's house. You track down a watchmaker 2 towns over. He fixes it for less than you braced for. You slide it across a picnic table on a Sunday. No box, no restaurant, no plan beyond meaning it. She cries before you finish the sentence. That feeling lasts about a week. Then the invitation comes. Sunday. The estate. Meet the family properly this time. A car picks you up. Not a cab. A driver who calls you sir before you've even sat down. You don't correct him. You don't know how yet. The gate takes its time opening. You count the seconds without meaning to. The driveway alone runs longer than the whole block you grew up on. Her father meets you at the door himself. Firm handshake, steady eyes, the kind of attention that feels less like a greeting and more like an assessment. He asks where you're from. You tell him. He asks what your own father does for work. HVAC repair, you say. 31 years, same company the entire time. Something moves behind the old man's eyes. You can't read it yet. Could be respect, could be nothing at all. Then the lawyers appear. Quiet about it, just there, folders under their arms, like this was always the next scene, regardless of how the last one went. There's a prenup. You read every page twice. It says plainly, if this ends, you leave with exactly what you came in with. Nothing more. You sign without hesitating. Yours doesn't shake, not on the outside. Her brother Weston watches you across the table the entire dinner, polite the whole time. The kind of polite that's really just surveillance wearing a good suit. You go home that night to your one-bedroom apartment. Marisol falls asleep fast beside you, as none of it touched her at all. It touched you plenty. You lie there a long while, and a mean little thought crosses your mind before you can stop it. That she gets to fall asleep easily, because none of this actually costs her anything. You feel bad for thinking it almost immediately. You don't say it out loud. You just let it sit there in the dark, uncomfortable, true enough to bother you. You start reading things you never used to bother with, the financial pages, terms with no clear definition in your head yet. You look them up at midnight, one hand flat on your chest, like you're trying to keep something in place that wants to come loose. You're not doing it because you want more. You're doing it so you're never the one person in the room who doesn't understand what's actually being said. That's the real beginning. Not ambition. Just the refusal to be caught not knowing. You're 29. The wedding is in June. 540 guests. You count them once on the seating chart, and never again. You recognize maybe 30 names on the whole list. 2 senators show up. A former ambassador sends flowers that need 2 men to carry them in. Someone's assistant hands you a card from a man who used to run a country. You don't know what you're supposed to do with that information, so you just say thank you and keep moving down the receiving line. Your mother wears a dress she bought on sale and altered herself at the kitchen table. She stands near the back holding her purse with both hands, like it might get taken from her if she loosens her grip. You've never been prouder of anyone in your life. Marisol walks down the aisle, and every name tag in that room disappears for you. It's just her. It's just the 2 of you saying words you actually mean, in front of 600 people who mostly came for someone else. That part is real. Hold on to that part, you're gonna need it later. The honeymoon ends, real life starts the following Monday. You move into the guest house on the property. Guest house, that's the word they use for something bigger than any home you've ever actually lived in. There's staff. A woman named Corinne runs the household like a small government. She calls you sir, and you flinch every time, and every time she doesn't seem to notice or chooses not to. You make your own bed one morning out of habit. Marisol finds you at it and laughs, not unkindly. You're confusing the staff, she says. You stop making your own bed. It feels like handing something small away, even though it's nothing. Her father brings up interest rates at dinner one night, something you half follow. You say, I'd want to look at the numbers closer before I said anything. He nods slowly. You realize later that it was exactly the right answer. Admitting you don't know something, calmly, without flinching, buys you more room in that house than pretending you do. Weston corners you at a garden party a few weeks later, drink in hand, smiling the entire time. People like you come and go around here, he says. Still smiling, you thank him for his honesty. You mostly mean it. You file the moment away somewhere you won't lose it. You snap at Marisol that same week over something small, a scheduling mix-up that wasn't even her fault. You're tired and out of your depth, and you say something sharper than you mean to. She goes quiet, then says, evenly, "That wasn't about me." You know she's right before she even finishes the sentence. You apologize that night. She lets you. You don't forget how easy it was to aim something ugly at the wrong person. You start spending mornings in the old man's study. Rows of books nobody else in the family reads anymore. You pick up a story about a deal from decades back, something that once made headlines. He walks in, sees you there, says nothing. But he notices. A week later, he asks what you thought of it. You tell him honestly, including the part where you weren't sure the deal was as clever as the book made it sound. He goes quiet for a second. Then he laughs, short and real, and talks for almost an hour straight. Longest conversation you've had with him since the wedding. You're learning a language with no actual words in it. It's built from who gets served first, who gets left out of a joke on purpose, who gets a second glance across the table, and who doesn't. You're bad at it still. But you're paying attention, and attention turns out to be the only tuition this particular school accepts. You're 31, a year in, and the family still treats you the way people treat weather. Something they've adjusted around instead of actually letting in. Marisol's pregnant with your first. That changes something. Not a lot, but something. You quit the print shop job a few months back. It started feeling absurd, formatting invoices for business cards while your wife sits on a foundation board that funds hospital wings in 4 countries. So now you have nothing. No shop, no shift, no title to hand to anyone who asks what you do. That's a harder kind of poverty than the one you grew up with. Nobody warns you about it. Money problems you already understood. This is different. This is having plenty of money and no reason to get out of bed, which isn't just waiting around for somebody to need you. You start showing up to things instead of waiting for a role to find you. Charity dinners, ribbon cuttings. You learn names. You learn who's rising in this world and who's being quietly moved toward the door. You watch the old man more than you talk to him. You notice he trusts almost nobody in that house completely. Everyone wants something from him, and it's worn a permanent kind of caution into the way he holds a conversation. He asks if you'd consider looking at a set of numbers for him. Not a job offer exactly. A gut check. "I don't trust the men giving me this report," he says. "I'd like a second pair of eyes that doesn't owe them anything." You spend 2 nights at the kitchen table with a stack of financials you barely understand at first. You call an old classmate from community college named Dale, who works in accounting now, ask him dumb questions at midnight, and take notes like, "Your life depends on getting this right." You find something. Small. A projection that's been quietly optimistic for 3 years running, papering over a division that's actually losing ground. You hand the old man a page with 4 numbers circled. He reads it standing up, doesn't sit down the whole time. "Come see me next week," he says, "just the 2 of us." Dale becomes your go-to after that. Every time you need a second read on something, you call him. He's good. He's fast. He never asks for anything in return, which should probably have told you something on its own. Your son was born on a Thursday in March. You hold him in a hospital wing with your name on the paperwork and no clear idea what to call yourself outside of it. Father. That one at least you're sure of. The old man visits the next morning, alone, with no assistant trailing him. He looks at his grandson for a long time. Doesn't say much. Then he looks at you, different than before. He puts a hand on your shoulder. "Come see me next week," he says. "We should talk." You don't sleep that night. You just hold your son and watch the window go from black to gray. You go home and tell Marisol. She doesn't smile exactly. She squeezes your hand once hard, like she already knows what that kind of trust from her father actually costs. You don't know it yet, but the second pair of eyes you leaned on that year is going to cost you something down the road. Not this year, not the next, but it's coming. You're 34 when you sit down in his study for that meeting. It runs for 3 hours. Nobody brings coffee. Nobody interrupts. He doesn't offer you money. He offers you the division you flagged 2 years back, the one that's been quietly losing ground while its reports stayed cheerful. Trucks, warehouses, a logistics operation out in Ohio. Nobody else in the family wants to touch. You found the rot, he says. Now, go find out if you can actually fix it, or if you just have a good eye. You've never run more than a small team in your life. You say yes anyway, because the alternative is spending the rest of your years being the man who married in and never did anything with it. You throw yourself at the work like you're trying to outrun something. Read every report twice. Ask questions until people stop wanting to see you walk into a room. You call Dale in more than you probably should. He runs numbers for you on the side, off the books, a favor between friends. You don't think much of it. Everybody does favors. You will find the real problem in 6 weeks. A regional manager named Grady has been skimming off maintenance contracts for years. Small enough that nobody flagged it. Big enough, it added up to real money by now. You let him go yourself. Your hands shook the whole meeting. He doesn't yell. He just looks tired, like he already knew this day was coming and hoped it would come later. You do it anyway. The numbers don't care how it feels to be the one holding the door open. 18 months in, the division turns a profit for the first time in 6 years. Not a big one, a real one. You walk into Sunday dinner and the old man nods at you across the table. A real nod, not the polite one he hands everyone else in the room. Weston stops smiling at you after that night. Something in him closes over, cold and quiet. He doesn't say a word about it. He doesn't need to. That same year, you push back hard against a smaller acquisition the family's considering, a stake in a regional freight company. You tell the old man it's overpriced, that the numbers Dale ran for you show the growth projections are inflated. He listens to you. He kills the deal on your word. 8 months later, the company gets bought by someone else at nearly double what your family would have paid. It wasn't overpriced, it was undervalued, and you missed it. You sit with that for a while. Nobody blames you out loud. The old man just says, good calls and right calls aren't always the same thing, and moves on to the next item. It stays with you longer than he probably meant it to. Marisol warns you gently one night about something smaller, an offhand comment you made about her spending too much time with a friend from the foundation circuit, someone you don't know well and don't especially like. She looks at you for a second too long. That's not who I am, she says. Don't do that. You know she's right. You let it go, and you feel small about having brought it up at all. The old men on the board start looking at you differently by the end of that year. Not like help anymore. But you carry the freight company miss quietly into the next chapter. A small reminder that your eye isn't as good as you'd started to believe it was. You're 38 the day you take a seat on the holding company board. Real estate, shipping routes, a media arm, a small bank most people outside the family have never heard of, but everyone's touched at some point without knowing it. The men at that table are older than you. Colder too, the way people get after decades of deciding things for other people without much pushback. Some of them have known this family longer than you've been alive. They see you as the guy who married up. You let them keep thinking that. It buys you room to work quietly. Your daughter's born that same year. You've got a son and a daughter now, and something in you locks into place the first night you hold her. You're not building any of this for yourself anymore. You start doing your homework better than anyone else at that table. You still lean on Dale for numbers you don't have time to run yourself. It's become routine by now. You don't think twice about it. Then it breaks. A reporter calls the house on a Tuesday evening, asks you to comment on leaked internal projections from 3 different deals over the past 2 years. Numbers that were supposed to stay inside the family. Numbers that only you, the board, and one outside accountant ever saw. You know before you finish the call. Dale sold it. Some of it to a competitor, some of it to a business paper, a few $1,000s at a time, over 18 months, because his own consulting firm was quietly going under, and nobody had offered him a way out. You never saw it coming. You trusted him because he never asked for anything, and it never occurred to you that not asking was its own kind of patience. The board doesn't blame you outright. Nobody has to. You feel it in the room anyway, in how long it takes people to look at you when you speak, in how carefully the old man phrases things around you for a few weeks. Weston, for the first time in years, doesn't say a word about it either way. He just watches, and his silence is somehow worse than anything he'd have said out loud. You spend nights going back through every number Dale ever gave you, trying to figure out what else might have been touched, what else you signed off on without checking twice. Some of it was fine, some of it wasn't. You have to walk back a projection you presented to the board yourself, in front of everyone, admitting you can't fully vouch for figures you defended 2 months earlier. It costs the family real money to untangle it. It costs you something else. For the first time since you married into this house, you feel like the outsider again. Not because anyone says it, because you can feel yourself checking your own footing before you speak. You come home most nights that season and don't talk much. Marisol notices before you say anything. One evening, she finds you at the kitchen table at midnight, same posture as always, another set of numbers in front of you, and something in her just gives out. "I didn't marry another version of my father," she says. She doesn't raise her voice. That's what makes it land the way it does. You don't have an answer ready. You sit there a long time after she goes upstairs, the numbers in front of you meaning nothing at all for once. You take 2 weeks off after that. Real weeks, not the kind where your phone's still in your pocket at dinner. You take your son fishing, badly, neither of you catching anything, and you don't mind. You let a decision go to someone else at the board for the first time in years, and the world doesn't end. The old man calls you into his study near the end of that stretch. Doesn't mention Dale. Just says, everyone gets fooled once by somebody patient enough. What matters is whether you get fooled the same way twice. You go back to work more slowly after that, not less. Slower. You're 43. You have the old man's private number now, the one that skips his assistant entirely. It took the Dale mess and the slow year after it to actually earn that kind of trust back, not the promotion itself. There are problems in this family that never reach a board meeting. They never get written down anywhere at all. You've become the person who handles those. A cousin's marriage falls apart badly, publicly, right before a company event that can't be moved without drawing attention. You spend a week on the phone with 2 lawyers and a very tired woman named Priya, just trying to get everyone through it without anyone getting hurt worse than they already are. A nephew runs up a gambling debt overseas that could turn into a real problem if it surfaces. You fly out yourself. You don't threaten anybody. You sit across from a man in a hotel bar and just listen to what he actually wants, which turns out to be smaller and sadder than the amount of debt. Then something lands on your desk that you didn't see coming. Weston, drunk at a business dinner 2 states away, commented on a phone that was recording, joking about a competitor's factory conditions in a way that could turn into a genuine scandal if it gets out. You could let it land on him. Some old, ungenerous part of you wants to. Just this once. 15 years of his cold looks across dinner tables, and here's a clean chance to let the consequences finally reach him without your hands anywhere near it. You sit with that impulse longer than you're proud of. You don't act on it. But you notice it in yourself, clearly, the same ugly little pull you felt years back, watching Marisol laugh with friends you couldn't keep up with. It doesn't go away just because you've gotten better at hiding it. You spend 4 days working with people you trust to get ahead of the story, framing it honestly as one man's bad night rather than the family's values, because the truth is, that's closer to what actually happened. Weston never finds out how close it came, or that you were the one who caught it before it landed. Then, a few months later, something happens that catches you completely off guard. Your mother's health takes a turn while you're overseas handling another fire. You can't get back for 4 days. Weston, of all people, drives out himself, sits with her in the hospital, handles the doctors, and doesn't call you to make sure you know he's the one doing it. You find out from your mother, not from him. He held my hand the whole first night, she tells you. Didn't leave once. You don't know what to do with that information for a while. It doesn't erase 15 years of cold dinners. It just sits next to them, uncomfortably, refusing to cancel them out or confirm them either. You call him to say thank you. He's short about it, almost embarrassed, like he doesn't want the credit and doesn't trust why you're offering it. She's my mother too, he says, and hangs up before you can say anything else. You sleep even less these days. You carry things you can't hand to anyone, not even Marisol, because some of it was never yours to share in the first place. You don't celebrate any of it. There's nothing to celebrate. You just go home, sit with your wife on the porch, and hold her hand until the quiet stops feeling heavy. The company means nothing without this, you tell her. She believes you. It's true, so she should. You're 48. The old man is slower now, still sharp in the head, but his body's started sending him messages he can't wave off anymore. You run the parts of the business he can't manage day to day. Not because you're the heir, you're not, and you never will be. Weston still holds that on paper, and nothing will ever change that fact. But you hold the relationships, the trust, the thing nobody can put a job title on, but everyone in that building understands is the actual inheritance. You travel constantly now. You sit across tables from people whose decisions move entire industries. Your father passed away 2 winters back. He never fully understood the world you ended up in. He was proud of you anyway, the plain kind of proud that doesn't need to understand something to mean it completely. You gave his eulogy in a small church that smelled like the one from your childhood. None of the billionaires you know showed up. Not one. You notice it, filing it away without much bitterness left in you, mostly just information. You keep your own kids ordinary on purpose. Your son works a summer job scooping ice cream 2 towns over, and you make him keep it even when he complains. Your daughter waits tables one summer and comes home smelling like fry oil, furious and proud in equal measure. Your son, 17 now, asks you flat out one night why you never took anything for yourself. No shares in your name, no trust set up in your name alone. You realize, answering him, that you've never actually said this out loud before. If your marriage ever ended, the prenup means you'd walk away with nothing you built here. 20 years of work, and on paper, none of it is yours. He looks almost angry on your behalf. You explain it plainly, though even as you say it, you're not entirely sure you believe every word of your own explanation. Some nights, alone, you let yourself wonder what it would mean to have something that was undeniably yours. You don't like sitting with that thought for long. You put it away each time, the way you've learned to put a lot of things away. Weston is still struggling in these years. He drinks less than he used to, actually, since the night at the hospital with your mother, though nobody talks about why. His own ventures keep failing quietly, one after another, and the old man keeps propping him up to save face at dinners nobody else remembers by Monday. You clean it up every time without making him feel small in front of people. You could let him fall. You don't, and for the first time, it isn't only for Marisol's sake. Some of it's for the man who sat with your mother for 4 straight nights and never once mentioned it. The old man notices that mercy. One night on the back porch, he tells you that you remind him of himself, only kinder. Kindness was never something I could afford, he says. I never learned if you can either, not all the way. You think about the freight deal you got wrong, the Dale mess, the thought you had about letting Weston's scandal land. You don't feel entitled to agree with him. He starts fading not long after that conversation. Slowly, then in pieces, you can see it coming from a distance. Some days he knows exactly who you are. Some days he calls you by his son's name, and you just answer to it, because correcting him would cost more than it would ever fix. You read to him some evenings. History, mostly the old wars he always loved. He listens with his eyes closed. Sometimes he squeezes your hand at the parts he likes best. You didn't expect to love this man. He terrified you the first time you shook his hand at that gate, 20 years ago. Now you're just trying to hold on a little longer before you have to let him go. You're 54. His health deteriorated quickly that winter, faster than the doctor said it would. You're at his bedside more than you're home most weeks. The machines make a small, steady sound in the quiet. You've gotten used to it in a way that scares you a little, if you let yourself think about it too long. He calls you into the room alone one night. Just you. No nurse, no assistant standing by the door. He tells you something he's never said out loud before, that his son can't run this, that he's known it for 20 years, and it's broken something in him every single one of those years. quietly, the way grief does when you can't grieve it in front of anyone. "Blood built this," he says. His voice is thin now, but the words come out steady. "Blood won't keep it standing." He asks you to protect the family when he's gone. Not the money. He's careful to say that part twice. The family. The grandkids you've watched grow up under this roof. The name carved over the gate that meant absolutely nothing to you the first time you drove through it, 26 years ago. Terrified in the back of a car you didn't know how to sit in properly. You sit there holding the hand of the man who once studied your face, like he was deciding whether to let you in the door at all. You realize, somewhere in that quiet room, that you love him the way you loved your own father. It surprises you even now, after everything. You tell him you'll protect all of them, including his son, especially his son. He squeezes your hand once, closes his eyes. Going through his private files with the estate lawyers, weeks later, you find a letter addressed to you, written years earlier, never sent. In it, he explains the real reason he tested you so hard at the beginning. He'd watched his own father get fooled once by someone exactly like you. A man who charmed his way into the family and quietly drained it for a decade before anyone caught on. He'd spent 30 years afraid of watching it happen again to his own daughter. You read it twice, sitting alone in that study full of books nobody else in the family ever opens. It changes how you see the whole of the last 2 decades. Not the outcome, just the shape of it. You spend the months after his passing meeting with lawyers and bankers you trust, working in the kind of quiet that doesn't show up on anyone's calendar. You build protections around the grandkids that no argument down the road can undo. Weston comes to you directly, angry at first, saying you're stealing what's his. You almost let the old resentment answer for you. 15 years of cold dinners are sitting right there, ready to be used. You don't reach for them. You hand him the letter instead of arguing. Let him read his own father's fear in the old man's own handwriting. He goes quiet, reading it. For the first time in over 20 years, he doesn't have a comeback. He was never testing you, you tell him gently. He was still protecting all of us from something that happened before either of us was born. Weston looks at you for a long moment. "I sat with your mother because I wanted to," he says finally. "Not to make up for anything. I need you to know that." "I know," you tell him, "and you do, now. Whatever war the two of you were fighting quietly for 2 decades ends there, in that ordinary room with nobody keeping score anymore. You become the person this whole family turns to now, without anyone ever announcing it out loud. You never wanted a seat at any table. You just wanted a girl who read books you'd never heard of, in a diner booth, on a Tuesday night that meant nothing to anyone else in the world but you. Somehow, the two things turned into the same thing, without you ever noticing the exact moment it happened. He dies on a gray morning in March. Quietly in his sleep, the way you'd hoped it would go for him. The funeral fills an entire cathedral. People come from 4 countries. Some of them you recognize. Most of them you don't. You give the eulogy, same as you did for your own father, years back in that small church that smelled like Sunday mornings. You talk about a complicated man who built something enormous and was terrified, underneath all of it, of dying alone. He didn't die alone. You were there. That matters more than anything you could put in a speech. You're 60 now. You stand at the head of a table that used to intimidate you just walking past it on your way to the study. You don't feel triumphant. Mostly you feel the weight of it, settling somewhere behind your ribs, permanent. Reading through the final estate documents, you find that the old man quietly amended the trust 2 years before he died. A clause carved out just for you. No control of anything. Just enough, in your own name, that if the marriage ever ended, you wouldn't walk away with nothing after all. You sit with that piece of paper for a long time. He never mentioned it. Your son works in the business now, quiet about it, sharp when it counts. Your daughter runs the foundation, and she runs it like she means every dollar of it. Weston sits at that table too, steadier than you've ever seen him. You didn't win against him. You just stopped needing to. You're alone sometimes, in the way people at the top of anything are alone. Marisol still knows exactly who you were before any of this. That's the one thing none of it could ever buy. One afternoon, with nothing pressing for once, you drive back to the old street. The print shop's a phone store now. You expect that. What you don't expect is the diner. Gone. Not renovated. Not renamed. Just gone. The lot fenced off. Weeds coming up through the cracked asphalt where the parking spaces used to be. You stand there a while, hands in your pockets, an old man in a good coat looking at a chain-link fence. The booth by the window is long gone with it. The napkin went missing somewhere around your third move decades ago, though you didn't notice it was gone until years after it actually was. You don't remember exactly what her handwriting looked like anymore. You remember that it was blue ink. You remember the corner was torn. That's most of what's left of that night, if you're honest. A color, a torn corner. The rest you've had to rebuild from memory. And memory isn't the same as having the thing. You get back in the car. You don't tell Marisol where you went. Not because it's a secret, just because some things don't translate well out loud, even after 34 years of trying to explain your life to her one piece at a time. Somewhere tonight, in some diner that's still standing, a young man is sitting across from a woman reading a book he's never heard of. He doesn't know her last name yet. He has no idea what it's going to test in him, or what it's going to cost him to keep, or how much of it he'll eventually lose track of without ever meaning to. He'll fold a napkin into his pocket tonight and think it's nothing. One day the napkin will be gone and the diner with it, and he'll still remember the color of the ink. That will have to be enough.